The air raid siren wailed through the night, its banshee cry forcing Nurse Anna Vaughan to quicken her steps across the hospital grounds. The blackout curtains made the path nearly invisible, but after 6 months at Station Hospital 217 in England, she knew every inch by heart. Inside, wounded soldiers moaned beneath harsh lights powered by generators that sputtered and coughed like dying men. "Prep ward Cipher incoming," barked Major Finley, his white coat splattered with blood that looked black in the poor light. "Germans. 3 of them. Luftwaffe bomber crew. Their plane went down 5 miles south." Anna froze. "Germans, sir." "They're men with wounds, Nurse Vaughan," the major said, not unkindly. "The Geneva Convention applies, even to the enemy." "Of course, sir." Anna nodded, feeling a flush rise to her cheeks. Since receiving news of her brother's death at Normandy 3 weeks prior, she had hardened her heart against anything German. The enemy had faces in her nightmares now, twisted and cruel, nothing like the smiling Kansas farm boys she'd grown up with. War made monsters of men, she had decided. The sooner it ended, the sooner they could all go home and rebuild their humanity. Until then, she would do her duty, but nothing more. No compassion wasted on those who had stolen her only brother from this earth. Duty without feeling, that was the only way to survive. The prisoners arrived under armed guard, stretchers carried by American GIs whose expressions mirrored Anna's own distaste. 2 were unconscious, badly burned. The third was awake, his blue eyes alert despite a deep gash across his forehead and what appeared to be a broken leg. Unlike his compatriots, his uniform wasn't that of a regular Luftwaffe airman. "This one's Luftwaffe intelligence," said the MP escorting them. "Found maps in his pocket. Careful with him." Anna was assigned to the conscious German. She worked mechanically, cutting away his blooded trouser leg to expose the fracture, cleaning the head wound with precise, impersonal movements. "Dank," he said softly, his accent making the English word sound musical. "Thank you." Anna didn't reply, focusing instead on the splint she was preparing. Men were dying all across Europe. Americans. Good men. Her brother. She wouldn't engage with this enemy beyond what medicine required. "My name is Lieutenant Ludwig Yeager," he continued in careful English. "And you a nurse?" His eyes found her name tag. "Vaughan." "You need to rest your voice," Anna said flatly. "The wound on your head could indicate concussion." "It is merely a scratch," he replied. "But your professional concern is noted." Was that humor in his voice? Anna glanced up and was startled by the intelligence in his gaze, the complete absence of the monstrosity she'd expected to find. Just a man. A handsome one, with high cheekbones and eyes the color of the summer sky back home. When she finished bandaging his head, his hand caught hers. Anna flinched, ready to call for the MP, but the German pressed something into her palm, a small folded paper, before releasing her. "Please," he whispered. "It is important." The paper burned in her hand. She should report this immediately. It could be intelligence. Maps. Codes. Anything that would harm more American boys. Instead, she slipped it into her pocket, telling herself she would read it first, then turn it in if necessary. It wasn't kindness that moved her, she insisted to herself. It was duty. Investigate, then report. That night, in the privacy of her quarters, Anna unfolded the note with trembling fingers. "Nurse Vaughan, I know from your expressions that you have lost someone to this terrible war. So have I. My sister in Dresden. My mother in Berlin. This madness has taken too much from too many. I ask only that you see me as a man, not a uniform. That is all any of us can hope for now." The words stripped away her armor. She crumpled the note, angry at its simple humanity, its echo of her own thoughts before her brother's death had hardened her. The next day, Anna found herself assigned again to Lieutenant Yeager. His leg had been set properly, and he sat upright in bed, a book of English poetry in his hands, something from the hospital's small library. "You read English well," she said before she could stop herself. "I studied at Oxford before the war," he replied, looking up with surprise at her engagement. "I was to be a professor of comparative literature. And instead, you became a soldier. As did many who never wished for war." He closed the book. "Did you read my note?" Anna checked to ensure no one was within earshot. "I should have reported it." "But you did not." "No." She busied herself checking his bandages. "Your head is healing well. Unlike the world around us." His smile was sad, genuine. "I apologize if my note troubled you." "My brother died at Normandy," Anna said suddenly, the words escaping before she could contain them. 3 weeks ago." Ludwig's face softened with recognition. "My condolences. War makes victims of us all, on every side." "How can you say that? Your people started this." "Not my people. Men drunk on power and hate." He leaned closer, voice low. "I was part of the Valkyrie plot against Hitler last year. When it failed, I was given a choice: the Russian front as punishment, or intelligence work in England." Anna stepped back. "Why are you telling me this? I could report you." "Because I saw in your eyes what I feel in my heart. Hatred for this war, not for the people caught in it." He reached for her hand again, this time empty. "You think me the enemy, but we are on the same side of humanity, if different sides of a conflict not of our making." When his fingers touched hers, Anna felt something she'd thought died with the telegram announcing her brother's death: connection. She withdrew her hand quickly, but the warmth lingered. Over the following weeks, Ludwig remained in the hospital as his leg healed. Security was surprisingly lax for the POWs. The threat of escaping with a broken leg into hostile territory seemed remote. Each day, Anna found reasons to check on him. Each day, their conversations grew, careful at first, then flowing more freely. He spoke of pre-war Berlin, of music and poetry. She told him about Kansas wheat fields and her dreams of becoming a doctor after the nursing shortage had drawn her to medicine. They existed in a bubble away from the war, even as it raged around them. Ludwig began writing her notes, slipped during medication rounds. Not intelligence or secrets, but verses from Goethe and Rilke, translated into English. Anna kept them hidden in her copy of Gray's Anatomy, knowing their discovery would mean court-martial, or worse. "You're being reassigned," Major Finley told Anna one rainy October afternoon. "The POWs are being transferred to a proper camp tomorrow. You'll be going to the field hospital in Dover." Anna's heart contracted. "Tomorrow, sir." "War doesn't wait, Nurse Vaughan." The major studied her face. "Is there a problem?" "No, sir." "Of course not." That night, during her final rounds, Anna found Ludwig awake, his face solemn. "I heard about the transfer," he said. "How did you? The walls have ears." He reached beneath his pillow and withdrew a letter, sealed in an envelope. "This is for you. To read after we've gone." She took it, hand steady despite her racing heart. "Ludwig, don't say it," he interrupted gently. "Not here. Not now. This war will end someday. Remember that." The next morning, the POWs were loaded onto trucks. Ludwig, now walking with crutches, glanced back once at the hospital. Anna stood at the window, watching his departure with a hollow feeling she hadn't expected. Only when the convoy disappeared did she open his letter. My dearest Anna, war separates us now, but I believe peace will reunite us. When this madness ends, look for me at the Old Oak on Oxford's High Street, the first Sunday after peace is declared, at noon. I will wait all day. And the next Sunday. And the next, until you come, or I know you will not. What has grown between us is the only true resistance to hate. Remember that when the world tells you to despise me for my birthplace. With deepest affection. Ludwig. Anna pressed the letter to her chest, conflicted. Loving an enemy combatant was treason in the eyes of many. Her brother's memory seemed to judge her from the small photograph she kept by her bed. Yet Ludwig wasn't the monster she'd imagined all Germans to be. He was a man caught in history's cruel machinery, as was she. Dover brought new waves of wounded as the Allied push continued. Anna worked mechanically, her thoughts often drifting across the channel, wondering where they had taken him. She wrote letters addressed as Lieutenant Ludwig Yeager, German POW, but knew they'd never reach him, intercepted by censors who would question her loyalty. In December, disaster struck. During an unusually heavy bombing raid on Dover, Anna was trapped beneath fallen beams when the hospital took a direct hit. She woke in a ward much like the one she'd worked in, her left leg in traction, broken in 2 places. You're lucky to be alive, Nurse Vaughan, said the doctor checking her chart. 6 weeks minimum before you'll walk again. As she recovered, Anna received a visitor she hadn't expected. Captain James Reynolds from Military Intelligence, a stern-faced man with precise movements and cold eyes. We found some interesting papers in your quarters after the bombing, he said without preamble, placing Ludwig's letters on her bedside table. Care to explain your correspondence with an enemy intelligence officer? Anna's mouth went dry. They're just poetry, sir. Harmless. Harmless? The captain's eyebrow raised. Fraternization with the enemy is a serious offense, Nurse Vaughan. Lieutenant Yeager was no ordinary airman. He had access to sensitive Luftwaffe intelligence. He never discussed military matters, Anna protested. Never. Perhaps not explicitly. Captain Reynolds leaned closer. Yeager escaped from the POW camp 3 weeks ago. We believe he had help. Anna's heart leapt at the news Ludwig was free, even as fear gripped her. I've been here, sir. I couldn't have helped him. But you might know where he'd go. Reynolds studied her face. If you cooperate, your indiscretion might be overlooked. I don't know anything, Anna said firmly, the lie bitter on her tongue. Oxford. The oak tree. Every Sunday. Reynolds sighed. War makes fools of the best of us, Nurse Vaughan. Your brother gave his life at Normandy, and here you are, protecting a German. Think about that. The words cut deeper than he knew. Anna had thought of nothing else for months. After Reynolds left, Anna made a decision. She requested transfer to a rehabilitation hospital further from the front. Away from Dover, away from questions about Ludwig, away from the temptation to seek him out. Her duty was to her country, her loyalty to her brother's memory. Yet Ludwig's words haunted her, what has grown between us is the only true resistance to hate. Was this what her brother had died for? A world where love was treason and borders determined who deserved compassion? The war ground on. Anna recovered, walking with a slight limp that eventually faded. She wrote to her parents in Kansas but never mentioned Ludwig. Some secrets were too dangerous, too precious to commit to paper that might be read by others. When news came of Hitler's suicide and Germany's surrender in May 1945, the hospital erupted in celebration. Nurses danced with patients, doctors opened hidden bottles of scotch, and everyone spoke of going home. Anna watched the revelry with a distant smile, her thoughts on a tree in Oxford and a promise made in wartime. The war in Europe was over, but the Pacific conflict continued. Her duty remained in England until orders came otherwise. The first Sunday after VE Day, Anna requested a day pass. She told the supervising nurse she wanted to visit London to celebrate, but instead took the train to Oxford. The university town had largely escaped bombing, its ancient spires and cobblestone streets untouched by the violence that had reshaped so much of Europe. The oak on High Street stood massive and serene, its spring leaves casting dappled shadows. Anna arrived at 11, her heart pounding, unsure whether coming was an act of hope or treason. She wore her civilian clothes, a simple blue dress she'd had little occasion to wear during the war years, and carried nothing but a small purse containing Ludwig's letters. She waited, watching students and townspeople pass by. None gave her more than a cursory glance. Noon came and went. Then 1 o'clock. 2. With each passing hour, Anna's hope dimmed. Perhaps Ludwig had been recaptured. Perhaps he'd made it home to Germany and forgotten his wartime promise. Perhaps he had never meant it at all. At 4 o'clock, as the afternoon light began to soften, a tall figure approached from the direction of the Bodleian Library. Anna's breath caught. Even at a distance, she recognized the distinctive stride, now unmarred by injury. Ludwig wore civilian clothes, a brown tweed jacket that might have belonged to an Oxford don, though it hung slightly loose on his frame. The war had thinned him, as it had everyone, but his eyes remained the same clear blue that had first cut through Anna's armor. He stopped several paces away, uncertainty crossing his features as though, like her, he questioned whether this meeting was dream or reality. "Anna Vaughan," he said softly. "You came." "I wasn't going to," she admitted, rising from the bench. "I told myself it was foolish. Dangerous. It was. It is." Ludwig closed the distance between them slowly. "They're still looking for escaped POWs. How did you manage it? All this time?" "Friends from before the war. Oxford professors who remembered the student, not the enemy." He smiled faintly. "And a belief that some promises must be kept, regardless of cost." Anna studied his face, searching for the enemy she had once been certain resided behind those eyes. She found only the man who had handed her poetry when she expected propaganda, who had offered humanity when she had armed herself with hatred. "What happens now?" she asked. "That depends." Ludwig took her hands in his, a gesture that would have been unthinkable months before. "The war is over in Europe. Soon it will end completely. I can return to Germany to help rebuild, or I've been offered a position at a small college in America. Teaching literature." His thumbs traced circles on her palms. "The college president is an old Oxford friend. He believes in second chances." "America," Anna repeated. "My home." "It could be our home," Ludwig said carefully. "If you believe, as I do, that what began in a military hospital was not a casualty of war, but its very antidote." Anna thought of her brother, of what he'd fought for. Freedom. A better world. A future where hate didn't dictate destiny. "My family may not understand," she said. "Few will, at first." Ludwig's gaze remained steady. "But if this war has taught us anything, it's that life is too precious to sacrifice to old hatreds." Anna stepped closer. "When I first treated you, I thought compassion was a luxury we couldn't afford in wartime. I believed seeing the enemy as human was a betrayal. And now?" Now I understand that seeing humanity even in those we're told to hate is the only thing that will prevent the next war." She squeezed his hands. "It's not betrayal. It's the very thing my brother would have wanted his sacrifice to mean." Ludwig drew her closer still, his forehead touching hers in a gesture more intimate than any kiss. "Then let us honor those sacrifices by building something worthy of them." 3 months later, Anna Vaughan stood on the deck of a transport ship entering New York Harbor, the Statue of Liberty rising before them. Beside her stood Ludwig Yeager, now her husband, their marriage certificate signed in a quiet London ceremony witnessed by the Oxford professor who had sheltered him. "America," Ludwig breathed, watching the skyline emerge from the morning haze. "A new beginning." Anna slipped her hand into his. "For both of us." Behind them lay a war that had divided nations but ultimately united 2 hearts. Before them stretched a future neither could have imagined. That day in a military hospital when a wounded German officer handed an American nurse a hidden letter, and she discovered that love could flourish in the most forbidden of places.